first I just want to call the meeting to order. It's 7:03. And I want to introduce our two student participants today, Faith, and please tell me how to pronounce, oh, Faith has disappeared. And is it Yana?
Yeah, it's Yana.
Yana. Okay. So Yana, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Yana Herzog. I'm a junior at Wakefield High School. I play hockey and field hockey. I love doing art. I love babysitting, and I just have a big interest in human rights.
Fantastic. We're happy to have you. And you're here, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, the Youth Council?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And just out of curiosity, how many members are on the Youth Council?
I don't know the exact total, but it's around like 20, I think.
Oh, wow.
12, like something like that. In between 10 and that.
Okay.
I don't know exact.
Okay. But. And the email from Catherine Dingra said that each of you kind of selected a town body to be a liaison for. Is that correct?
Yeah. I chose human rights.
Great. Fantastic. Well, we're happy to have you.
Maria, can I just ask, do you just want to officially call the meeting to order?
I did.
Oh, and call attendance, and then
okay.
I didn't hear you do that. Sorry.
Okay. No. I called it to order, but I didn't officially take attendance. So
and ask if there's members who want to public participate. I think just to do that at the start would be good.
Okay. All right. Yep. So Faith, we will do your introduction in just a second. So for attendance, we have Sherry Oken.
Here.
Benny Wheat. Yana Herzog.
Here.
Faith Defendre, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that.
You did perfect. Thank you.
Jen Betcher.
Here.
And then Dan Lieber, do you want to introduce yourself, and are you here for the public participation?
I am. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll put on my video for this part of it. Yeah. So pleasure to see everyone here. So I'm a resident in town. I've actually had a peripheral work with the commission. I've been managing the Hate Is No Home Here sign campaign for as long as it's been in Wakefield. I actually helped transition it from Winchester over here. Still have a fair amount of stock, even although it does deplete as the signs unfortunately get stolen. One of the things that just want to bring up to the commission to at least figure out how to help is I noticed when I was looking at the agenda, the discussion of racist issues, and there is actually a significant one that you may have seen on social media, particularly related to the mascot that's used by the high school itself. And that's one that I certainly have interest in. I have a daughter who's an incoming freshman. She actually finds it quite racist. We personally have family members who are uncomfortable actually attending anything at the high school as a result of that. They are Native by background, and they find it incredibly offensive. So it's one of those things that I'm trying not to be too loud and obnoxious about the issue, but I want to make sure that the issue does at least get addressed, preferably on a local level, even though there's also movement at a state level to force the issue as well. But there have been some other parents and so forth that I've been working with within the school. The school administration seems interested in addressing it, but is not willing to go out politically to even entertain it. And especially where we do have some students here, I would love to get their input or have the commission get their input to help lead the examination of possibly an alternate options for mascots from the current Native American caricature that is used. So that's just what I want to say, and I do appreciate having the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Would anyone want to respond to that? And particularly the students, if you want to, I don't know kind of what the conversation is at the high school level about this, but if you want to fill us in, and I can tell you a little bit about kind of what the Human Rights Commission has done, the conversations that we've had about it in the past.
Well, I also agree with you, Mr. Danny Lieber. I agree it is very racist, but in my opinion, I think we should completely get rid of the mascot, warrior head, all that. But I think we should keep the name warrior so we don't forget completely whose land this was and all of their background and history. But I also agree with that.
Thank you. Sherry, go ahead.
So Faith, if I understand you correctly, you'd like to keep the warrior name, but have a more neutral logo associated with the fact that the teams are fighters, because the word warrior also has a generic definition when you don't associate it with a racist image. Like, you know, we call Viet vets warriors too. Well, I agree with you. Both of you. My sound's not turning off. I stopped speaking. It doesn't turn off.
That's all right. So yeah, as you alluded to, Dan, last year we had some conversations about this, and it seemed like things were progressing at the state level around 5 different bills related to the Indigenous people in terms of the state seal, the flag, the mascots, Columbus Day, and possibly renaming it. And at that time, I think we had decided that given how fast things were moving at the state level, or at least that they appeared to be moving at the state level, that we would take kind of a wait and see approach. And obviously with the COVID-19 crisis and the shutdown, a lot of that has been, a lot of other things have had to take priority over that. So I'm not opposed to having conversations with some other community groups and town boards about getting people's thoughts on it. I know people have a lot of thoughts. I've seen some of the conversations about this on social media, but yeah, I would certainly be happy to continue to have conversations about it and see about moving forward on this.
I would also say, so one of the things that I looked into last year when we were talking about this was looking up what towns and cities in Massachusetts have successfully completed a campaign to get rid of either a racist mascot or a racist name of their sports teams. And I'd be interested in doing some, trying to dig up who was involved in those campaigns and get the story of how were you able to be successful? Because it's an uphill battle in any city or town, or some of them were I don't know what you call them. They're kind of like rural conglomerates where there's multiple towns that use one school. Anyway, in any place in America, it's going to be an uphill battle to get rid of those types of symbols and names because most people are not natives, right? And so if you're doing it by some kind of one person, one vote type of system, it's very, very hard to get the momentum you need. But people have been successful doing it before. So I'd be interested to see what were the keys to success in the towns that have been able to do it. And there's a whole bunch of towns in Massachusetts that have been able to do it. So if we wanted to go down that road, I'd be interested in, or I think it would be to our advantage to connect with some of those communities and learn some about what they did to inform how we want to go about it instead of reinventing the wheel or doing something that's going to be counterproductive or whatever.
I think that's a great idea. Are you able to get in touch with those communities or look up those communities?
Yeah, I look them up. I know which towns. What might be hard, but I'm excited to take a stab at it, is trying to track down the actual organizers who were involved in the processes. But, I'll take a stab at it for sure.
Okay, yeah. And I feel it may have been Maine recently that the entire state took down their Native American mascots. So that might be also something worth looking into. And if you want help looking into any of that, I'm happy to happy to pitch in there. So yeah, and Dan, I just saw that they removed the logo, but they have not, are they still, is the mascot still the same?
The mascot and the name was updated. Melrose used to be known as the Red Raiders, and
right.
their logo used to have a green pepper with feathers on it. They're now just the Raiders. They dropped the first word of it, and they changed their actual logo to now just an M with a circle around.
Oh, wow.
And that was done at the superintendent's sole discretion in absence of any other policy prohibiting her from doing that. And that was done in 2016. So it's fairly recent. And as we know, Wakefield likes to follow other nearby towns. So there is actually precedent for doing this type of change and doing it administratively. The schools have made progress. During my tenure on the school committee, for those who aren't aware, I served on the school committee from 2008 to 2011. There was actually a movement that started to reduce the usage of the Warrior logo and even the name to some degree, and it was compartmentalized to the high school. So the other schools started coming up with their own logos, their own mascots, and every other school has one. So that's where we now have the generals for the middle school. We also saw somewhere shortly after my tenure that the school district itself stopped using the mascot and actually has its own logo and referential information as well. So we've seen change there, and it can be done administratively as opposed to just politically. And I'm mentioning that because that's something that can be helpful, especially if the Human Rights Commission as a body decides to take action in saying that, yes, a change is warranted. And that can be very helpful. Personally, I've seen this, the school that I actually graduated from, back when I graduated high school, which seems like back in the dark ages, it was actually known as the Indians. That was the name, and it had a mascot logo and mascot.
I don't keep track of regrets, and I don't have a figure.
So it's very, very similar to a variety of different pieces. Yeah. And it sorry if you heard other sounds, that was from one of the websites that was open. So the various pieces have changed, and we have seen things change. It's that particular school is now the Wolves, which it was fine. I remember having those discussions again back in what seems like the dark ages. It's time that Wakefield joined that as well. So I think that anything done at a local level tends to gain more support than if it is pushed down from others. And to see current students take part in that, including the incoming freshman class and so forth, I think would be really helpful. And the piece that I think is missing, in my opinion, is for the students to make it clear to the administration that there are options for change. That's the piece that, in talking with the administrators, when talking with Principal McLeod, that is very, there is a gap there that has not yet been bridged, that students actually are accepting of it. There's not an issue about alumni, it's not an issue about other things. It's really, it affects the current students more than anyone else.
Yeah, and I think that would be, an important, and I think that would be really important to hear the voices of those students if there is an overwhelming push of the students who are currently at the high school. If there's an overwhelming push from them to change the mascot or change the logo, I would love to hear from them. So if there's, what do you, and this is to any of you, who would be the best group or person to reach out to? Would it be the principal of the high school? Would it be a student group at the high school?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Has this been brought up or discussed in any way before the youth council? Yana?
Sorry, what was that?
Has this been discussed at all by the youth council? The whole notion of
Not yet. But I've been meaning to bring it up or something because I definitely think we need to get rid of it, like a logo. But It hasn't been brought up just yet.
Okay, because that seems to be the kind of student group that represents a broad
Yeah,
section of students that might be
Either-
able to deal with this.
yeah, either youth council, student council, or administration, I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, Yana, maybe you and I and Catherine could talk about, I don't know how often you guys meet, but maybe having a conversation with the youth council and starting there and seeing what people's thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That'd be good.
Jen, did you want
I have a question, yeah, because I guess I'm not quite sure how this works like town-wide. So I know, my kids go to the Woodville and we're the Woodville Bears, and as Dan mentioned, a lot of the schools now have their own mascots, mascots. However, like I know I saw signs out in the neighborhoods with like, proud home of a Woodville graduate that had the W and the Warrior logo on it, and I'm like, what? And I saw it, I think also for the Galvin. And so to me, it's like, if we're the Woodville Bears, why do we have a sign that has the Warriors logo on it at all, right? So that's like one question I had, just trying to understand. I think those are just like recycled signs or a design that they've used in the past that they decided to use. But it did bring up stuff for me, because I was like, I don't know why any of the elementary schools would be using the Wakefield overall logo on anything, or the Wakefield High logo on anything. But my question was more around the like town-wide sports, like the rec, like Wakefield youth lacrosse and youth soccer and all these things that are not necessarily associated with the school. So I think there's something to be said about working administratively, potentially with like getting the high school mascot change, but what does that do? Or is there a broader conversation that we need to have with like the town-wide mascot or for town-wide things? And I guess I'm just not sure where those link up, if at all, or how that works.
that I'm not sure. I don't know if, Maureen, do you have a sense?
I don't. I've always been told, that this is a school committee deliberation. I feel like I said that when we talked about this before. And so I don't know, do you guys have a liaison? Are you supposed to have a liaison from the school committee? Like an equivalent of me?
We've talked about it.
I don't know that we're supposed to, but in a recent conversation with the chair, with Amy Purcell, I had asked if they wanted to have a liaison in the same way that the town council has a liaison. And so we're still working through that process.
So I think having that conversation with Amy, or if you get a liaison, or with Doug Lyons, I've always been told it's a school committee question. And so I think, I think reaching out to the youth council and getting on the youth council agenda is brilliant. That's why we created a youth council, to have young people's voice at the table. But I think reaching out to school committee would be great. The other thing that I'm going to add to Benny's to-do list there is, so the bills are all filed by Senator Lewis, who's our state senator. And I hear, Dan, that we need to start on the local level, but he was just outside the State House last week talking about these. And so I think to invite him to a future meeting, just to his team's probably done a lot of that research that you're looking for about how other towns have done this, how other states have done it. So just to cut down on your work, we might invite him to a future meeting just to talk about, because they're following what's happening across the country and across the state. But yeah, I would ask school committee about that, Jen. I think it's kind of like the town, I grew up next door in Linfield, and we didn't have per school. It sounds like from what Dan said, that's a more recent thing about the Gators and the Bears, but everyone in Wakefield is technically a Warrior. But I've been told the school committee is where this conversation needs to start.
Thank you. All right. Did anyone have anything else that they wanted to say about that?
I had one question for Dan also, which is, what was my question? Oh, in the time so you said you were on the school committee previously. In the time that you were on there and you saw that movement happening, what do you think made that possible?
great question. It was driven not politically. There was political opposition back then as well. Some of the same members are still there, still have the same fundamental opposition to the change. They don't understand how it is problematic. And so it was actually done administratively by the superintendent at the time. So the superintendent is the one who said, this is problematic, and the superintendent has the ability to make that change. It's really not, doesn't have to be driven as a political matter by the school committee itself. It's not as if there's a school committee policy that says we are the Warriors. It's really a school-based decision and one that can be handled administratively. Now, that ultimately is how Cindy Taymor and Melrose was able to do it. And people did come up and ask the school committee to pass a policy, and they ultimately decided to listen to their superintendent and agreed that the change was warranted. But it took some political courage and some civic courage for her to make that move. I think that where we have already had some of that movement over time by various superintendents to encourage the compartmentalization of the usage of the Warrior logo and to a lesser degree the name, I think that can continue and again be pushed. I think if the high school itself were to initiate a change, I don't think it would actually be as hard to accept by others. I think that if it gets to the political class, it becomes much more difficult to ask someone who's elected to say, okay, we're going to vote on this mandatory change. So that's just my thoughts on it, because while I was in favor of it, even back then, there was a lot of resistance, just predominantly because the people who are most invested locally, who are also voters, will have had many years and will have the alumni connection. The alumni, for almost all these changes, tend to be the most vocal opponents of change. And it's just because they went through it, they know it, and there's something to be said for the status quo in that way. But status quo is not always respectful. We see that it's part of why we even have a Human Rights Commission, because the status quo didn't work.
All right, thank you very much, Dan. All right, so before we go any further, I just wanted to see, Faith, if you wanted to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Faith. I'm going to be a senior this year at Wakefield High. Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay.
I'm going to be a senior this year at Wakefield High. I'm so sorry I'm in the car. I'm coming back from somewhere with my little sister.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit.
Her birthday today, so I was just celebrating from a recent event. Oh, I'm sorry. You might know me from a recent event that happened in Wakefield, the march. I, along with two of my other friends, put that together, the Black Lives Matter march. Many of you guys were there. I know you were there, Miss Lee. Super happy about that. Yay, I'm glad you were there. And we put that together, and we're planning on doing a vigil very soon. But we'll see how that goes. And I'm just super happy to be here. A lot of you guys know Christina. Christina's my best friend. She's the one who really told me that this is something that I would want to do and be a part of. So I'm here.
Great. Fantastic. Well, we're happy to have you. And yeah, we're excited. We're excited to hear your ideas and get your thoughts on all of this. All right, so moving down the agenda, we have the approval of minutes from the June 16th meeting last month. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Did anybody have any edits that they wanted to make to them? Okay, seeing nothing, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Second? All right, so I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Sherry?
Aye.
Benny?
Yes.
Faith, I'm not going to ask for your vote since you were at last month's meeting. And Jen?
Aye.
Okay. And I vote in support of that as well. So the motion passes, so the minutes are approved. And Benny, if you want to send those to Sherry Dalton tomorrow, that would be great, or later tonight, whatever. All right. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the Pride Month wrap-up. So I just wanted to see if anyone had any kind of comments or feedback that they got from people related to the various videos that we did, or any of the things that we had posted on our Facebook page.
I don't see very many people, especially lately.
Yeah.
The thing that amazed me though was we have all those flags. Were they all given out? Because literally, I did not see more than one flag hanging anywhere in town.
Yeah.
Of our flags.
I know that there was, Amy ran up
them at the
and had them at a bucket in the public safety building. Yeah,
and I checked there and I didn't see it there. Maybe it was already gone. But I didn't see any displayed at people's homes. Only I saw one other besides the one at my house.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of walking and I didn't see anything.
Well, I mean, there were 300, and I still have, I think, one package, so I have 12. And I don't know if there was other people who had some, but the ones that were given to Amy to put out were all put out. But I think in a town of 20,000 some people, 300 is not that many when you think about it. So I don't know. I definitely saw some in my neighborhood. I mean, I know I gave some to or help distribute some, but even people who I didn't know, I would drive by or walk by and I saw some, and they were definitely, I think they were the ones that we had. So I did see some, Sherry,
Because I walk 2 or 3 miles all around up and down the west side just about every day, and I did not see one in that area at all. So I was, like I said, I was disappointed. But I'm happy to hear that at least in other parts of town, the flag was displayed.
I know there was definitely interest when, Jen, I think it was you that had posted that there were flags available at the public safety building, and someone, I think, wrote the day or 2 days later saying, I went to get my flag and there weren't any left. And then I think Amy replenished them. So there certainly was at least an initial, seemed to be great initial interest in getting the flags. I don't know what happened with them, if people chose to just keep them in their houses or if they chose to put them somewhere outside. I'm not sure.
Well, they held up very well. So mine's going to be good to go for next year.
In terms of your question about did we hear anything? I mean, obviously, I was just checking the comments on what we did post, and generally there wasn't a whole lot of engagement, but there were a lot of likes and not very many comments, and the comments that we did get were positive. One thing I did want to bring up was that we still technically owe people the raffle. So I want to make sure that's going to be something we talk about.
I was going to mention that related to that, because I have all of the books except for I think there was one mailed to Christina, and I hadn't heard back from her. So, but I have the other books, and if I hear from her, we can about collecting all of them. And I have to go back and check. Did we say that we would give them to people who commented, or that we would just?
So I think the original messaging was like, that was what was in the paper. It wasn't put on every single post. So we probably need to be more consistent with that next time. But it was supposed to be like comment on or comment this video, or comment on this video, or send us a message, and you'll be entered to win. I don't know some of the, I comment on most of the videos, but I don't necessarily need to be entered to win all of them. So I don't know how many of those we could say you're definitely entered versus you just commented because you wanted to comment, right? Versus I don't think we got any messages to our page about, can you please enter me in the raffle for this book? So I don't know.
Okay. So if it makes sense to people, do you want to, we can go through the comments and make a list of names of all the comments that people submitted and then just choose the names at random. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to obviously get people's contact information to be able to distribute them. Yeah, I mean, we could do it that way, or we could do a separate post to say, you know, thank you for participating. If you'd like, let's go back to who originally commented. I was going to say we could do a separate post of like, comment here if you'd like to join the raffle, but we could probably do like a last chance, like make sure you comment on one of our book videos because we're going to be pulling a raffle in X number of days or something like that if we wanted to try to drum up more interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, if it were closer to the end of June, I know to do that, but it feels kind of far out.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, all right. Yeah, and I can go on and go through the names and let people know if they've.
Yeah, and then you can do one of those, you know, random number generators or something to like pick who wins.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything else about Pride Month, Benny?
Yeah, I was just going to say that one piece of feedback that we got in our meeting last month was that we should go for the flagpole that's on the common next year. And I'm all about it. Yeah, so that was a piece of feedback that we had already gotten, but I wanted to raise that up.
Okay. Yep. And I think we would need to reach out to Steve Mayo and Tom Mullen about that, about what the policy is, if there's a policy of flying a flag on the flagpole at the common. So if anyone wants to volunteer to do that, or I can do that, let me know.
I can do that. Do you think it makes sense to do it now, kind of while Pride is still fresh in our minds, or do we do that next year as we're ramping up?
I would maybe reach out now, because given the fact that the first year that we flew the flag at the Civic Center, there had to be a policy created around flying a flag at the Civic Center. And obviously that takes some time. So I would maybe reach out to them now with the possibility of, you know, just saying, obviously this isn't applicable until next June, but just wanted to see what the process was, if it's something that we needed to look into making any kind of amendments or changes to policy or something like that. All right.
Can I just add that, like, I was at that last meeting, and as someone who worked for 2 years to get the Pride flag at the Civic Center, and it flew there for a month, to have someone come to the meeting and be like, we should have a Pride flag. I was like, oh, I don't even know you, but like, you are breaking my heart through Zoom right now. So I think you should definitely ask. I don't know. There was a reason. Like not all flagpoles can hold 2 flags. Like that, they'll tell you the reasoning behind it and why the Civic Center was chosen. But I do want to say, like, the flag and all the programming that you did, it was great. Like seeing those stories being read, like it was a great Pride Month, and you guys did an amazing job considering this pandemic. So lots like deltas for next year, but I just want to take a moment of like, even the Pride raising, where like we didn't have 200 people, but it was like one of my favorite days in June of just like getting that flag up there and seeing it the whole month. So I just want to acknowledge that, and hopefully somebody was able to send, I think her name was Sue, a picture of the Civic Center flag so she saw it. But it makes me sometimes that, you know, you forget that you do all this good work, and people, it's so top of our mind, and other people don't notice. So, and then I'm just going to say to Sherry, you should come walk your next walk, make on my side of town, because the flags are everywhere.
In Greenwood.
I had 4 different people reach out to me and ask like, hey, where do we get those? Do you have them? And I purposely didn't take any because I knew they were so popular. And they like immediately like went to somebody's house to Jen. I sent a couple of people to Jen's house. It was a former member still had some, so she got some. And then I was the one who went to the police station and they were gone there. So they're definitely on my side and they're still around there. People did not put them in. Especially if you go up, what's the street? If you go up Greenwood, especially, there's a lot there.
Great. Yeah. We're gonna start to have competitions about different parts of town. Who displays the most rainbow flags or pride flags. All right. Thank you, and thank you for that, for the encouragement, Maureen. It's very much appreciated. All right.
Broke my heart, so I needed a little bit of, you know.
But it was also really exciting to be able to say, it's done. It's already there.
Check. Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that was good. That was great. Okay, so moving to the next item on the agenda, the anti-racism action updates. I know we had a few things from our action list from last month. So why don't we address those first and then talk a little bit more about kind of what we see, what we'd like to see and do going forward. So Sherry, I think that you, go ahead.
I did a bit of follow-up. The first person I contacted was Catherine at the library, and she said, I am always delighted to do work with the HRC. She said, but right now we just have to get the library up and operating again, because when I spoke with her, it was before they even had the curbside pickup. And they had not yet collected all the books that all of us borrowed in a panic because we knew the library would be closed. So she said, you know, until we can start thinking about live, we need to put this off, the discussion on exactly what, but the willingness was definitely there. The next person I contacted was the head of the Wakefield Linfield Chamber of Commerce. And he said, oh, I don't have anything like that. He goes, and basically what he was saying is, we're so lucky we have no racism problems here, which sort of blew my mind. I think he was equating problems with violence, obvious protests, but I don't think he was aware that some people have been profiled. Other people are made very uncomfortable walking through Wakefield. People do not feel welcome. So he didn't understand the more subtle forms, perhaps, of racism. But he said, but you know, if you have any information for me, I'd be happy to share it. Then I tried contacting the North Shore Chamber. I contacted the CEO, never got a response. Then I contacted someone more junior who I personally know from times when I was a member, and I've not gotten a response. That was a little frustrating. The last thing I did was I went to the the Black Business Owners website that you had given me the name of, and I tried contacting them because they had a contact, and I had a number of questions. I wanted to know how the postings came about. Were people vetted or were they just posted themselves? It looked like people just self-posted. And I wanted to know if it was kept up to date. And then I, of course, said to him, is it okay if we share a link? Never heard anything. But since it's such a public website, I think it would be okay to share the link on our website. I just don't know much about how current it is, how well updated it is and maintained, because nobody answered. Right. So we got one really enthusiastic, yes, let's work together. Another, sure, you know, maybe we can do something, but I got the impression that perhaps we had a lot of work to do in terms of educating the business community. And then no responses in 2 other cases. But we will be able to work with the library. They definitely want to do programming with us.
Great. Yeah, and for those of you, particularly for the student members, we have partnered with the library in the past. We did a book discussion on The Hate You Give last year, and we've done a few other joint programs with them around discussing issues of race and racial justice. So they've been great to partner with in the past, and that's something that that I would love to do continuing, whether it's an ongoing book club discussion or bringing speakers there. That would be a phenomenal partnership. So I guess Sherry, if you want to continue the conversation,
I will.
Just see if they want to let us know when I definitely understand what's in front of them in terms of trying to reopen and get that sorted out. So yeah, I don't want to push too hard.
But she did want to know, some suggestions. And I said, I think we have to just sit down and have a brainstorming. I mean, it could involve the book group, it could involve a panel, it could involve any kind of open discussions. As we discussed, there's a lot of difficult conversations that could possibly be facilitated through the library, which is really the heart of the city, the town.
Yeah. Do you think it would be worth having someone from the library come to our next meeting, inviting them and doing a brainstorming session with them at the next meeting, or do you think there's a better way to go about that? And this is a question for the whole group.
I think we should do it offline. These meetings go on a pretty long time, and I think if it's brainstorming going on offline, then we can bring those suggestions to this group, who can then tweak them, tinker with them, add to them, but at least get the initial list done offline in the interest of time, because these meetings are long.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and we would just need to be careful how we do that, because we can't have a group brainstorming session offline because of the open meeting law. So why don't we just say, if people have ideas about the library and how we collaborate, and different ideas for collaborating with the library, Sherry, can you be the point person that people send those ideas to?
Please.
People can email Sherry, and then if you want to report those ideas to the library and see what they think, and see if they have other ideas, and then maybe report back at the next meeting. Would that work?
Sure. In fact, tomorrow I will contact Catherine and say that we would like to at least start gathering ideas. Yeah. And if her staff, at her next staff meeting, would please bring up the fact that we were interested in developing some programming, and if they have ideas, to share them.
Okay. That sounds good. And so, yeah, if we could have that on as an action item, that if anyone has thoughts or ideas about collaboration, to send them to Sherry. All right. Did anyone else have any other follow-up things from last month's action item? There's other things I want to talk about in terms of this agenda item, but I just want to see if there's anyone else that had follow-up that they wanted to report back on.
I think mine were to post something about Juneteenth, which we did. And I did, not on anti-racist, my other things were not specific to this agenda item, so. Okay,
all right. And I had a brief conversation with Matthew Cadwell, who's the head of the Interfaith Clergy Association here in Wakefield. And I think things are pretty quiet for them over the summer. So we decided I was gonna probably regroup with him next month to talk about any kind of participation they are looking into in terms of racial justice, and also to talk about filling the clergy position. So I will check in with him again next month, if that makes sense.
Can I just make a little note there too? I just went to an event at the UU Church on Main Street, and they are getting a new minister, and she's a young woman from JP, and they're really excited about her. There's a write-up about her in the paper, and she will plan to join the Clergy Association, but she is also planning to just put out a chair in August in their front lawn and have conversations with people. And so yes, to have a clergy member, but also think about newer members who might just even be interested in knowing the work that you do and future partnership.
That's good. I know, Matthew, I think the clergy council was low on people because there were several churches who had interim ministers or things like that. So, I think we had 3 people that were rotating really. So it'll be great that we have another one.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was another reason, just because of their low numbers, that it was like, let's revisit this towards the end of the summer. So it was like, okay, totally understand. Okay. Let me just see. So I wanted to just talk a little bit in terms of, I don't know how many of you saw the social media post that someone had posted. They had sent it to one of the moderators of one of the Facebook groups. And that person posted it. So we don't know the identity of the person who wrote this, but it was someone who I think she's in a biracial relationship. I think her husband is Black. And she talked about what they're perceiving and what they're feeling from the conversations that are happening on social media. And it was a really discouraging, disheartening thing to read. And I wanted to talk with people just about their thoughts about what we can do in terms of affirming for the residents of Wakefield, the Black and residents of color, people of color in Wakefield. What can we do to affirm and to help them to not just see the conversations that are taking place on Facebook? Because I feel like some people are speaking much louder, and it's usually the people who are less tolerant. And I don't want us to just be a group that's just reacting to these things. I want us to be proactively affirming the richness of the diversity that we have and that we want to continue having in Wakefield. And so I was just curious and I know that this is kind of dropping this right in your laps right now. So if this is obviously the beginning of this conversation, but I was just curious if people had thoughts or ideas about what we could do to proactively affirm a supportive and inclusive message.
Oh, that is a big question. I mean, because we talk about programs and things like that in the future, but not everybody gets to them. And I'm not a big social media person. Honestly, I don't even look at our own Facebook page, no less I don't even look at my Facebook page. So it's kind of disheartening that people are getting all of their messaging from that one place, and that's where they go, that they don't choose to go anywhere but there. So where could we get that messaging out other than Facebook? Or is that it? That's what, in fact, I'm rather surprised so many people are still so enthusiastic about Facebook, considering all the news that it's been about Facebook recently and the criticism. But other than we have a campaign on Facebook, we start posting things.
Right.
If that's where people are looking, that's where we'd have to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's certainly a possibility. I mean, that could be one of our methods.
Yeah, and we have a Facebook. People asked us this at our the special meeting that we had, and talked about, are you guys on Twitter or Instagram? And we're not. I mean, that's also forms of social media, but I guess that could be something we explore.
Perhaps the students can help us, because they're
much
better at that than we are.
Yes, I mean, that's just, in terms of like what else other than Facebook, I mean, there are other social media channels we could potentially look into. I mean, we have our website. Our website's pretty stagnant, although it does now have our Facebook feed, because that tends to be where we're more active. So at least that's updating things a little more frequently there for folks who don't have Facebook or don't engage with Facebook. If they go to our website, they see some more recent things there. I think part of the problem is, for so many of our messaging, we have to all meet, and we have to like agree on how do we want to respond to that or whatever. And so that's just not, our format isn't conducive to that sort of like quick reaction. And we've talked about that before. So yeah, I mean, and the problem is we put out, hopefully, I think, positive things and messaging on our Facebook page, but we're followed by people, but the people who are seeing this are in these larger community groups. That's a different dynamic than just like us putting out things and people responding to them. People don't post their own organic posts on our page because it's more of a one way. I mean, not that we have two-way dialogue within the comments, but it's not like people are starting dialogues there for other people to chime in on. So that's just, I don't know what my point was. It's just an observation about the difference between like us putting out positive things on our page versus a completely different group where I mean, some of the people who even came to our meeting were like, I didn't even know we had a Human Rights Commission until somebody wrote in a comment on this other site about like, you should go to the HRC meeting. So, if they don't know about us and aren't following us, how do they see our things, and I just think it's such a fraught thing to like comment in any of those groups. So we tend to stay out of it, right?
And we got feedback that the newspaper was not necessarily a good venue, that the people that we might want to speak with weren't reading the Wakefield item. So it wasn't as if our messaging in the item even got out to that population.
I found out something because I was talking to my husband who's on the Gas and Light Commission, because we talked about like, could we put things in the light bills because everyone gets them. Yes. And he's like, we don't get a light bill. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, because we all do all our stuff online, so we get an electronic bill. And so I was like, so what if they send something in your mailer? We don't get it? And he's like, no. And he's like, most of our customers don't get the physical bill in the mail, they do it online. So that's just something I just wanted to bring up because I know we had talked about that last time as like an option. And I didn't realize that we didn't get one, let alone like a lot of people in town don't get one. So,
and you're missing out because there's other materials that come through in that light bill.
Yeah, well, and that's why I asked him. I was like, so what do you do about those? Is there like an email or something, or that when you get your electronic bill, is there like a PDF version of whatever would have come in your thing? And he said no, at least not now. But I think it could be something that we push for.
Yeah, I was surprised when somebody brought up the idea of the light bill last month because I was like, what light bill? What are you talking about? Yeah, we
get one.
It's about half the household. So their numbers. Yeah. So Tom was a little, because we
60, 40 or it's 55, 45 or something.
It's about half the households get it. WAVE, the Wakefield Alliance Against Violence, we did last year we put in a flyer with it that went out in like the summer for our October 5K. So, and we got some donations through it. So it goes to a certain population. But yes, the people who pay their bills online don't get it.
Yeah, because the parade, the fireworks, the scholarship fund, all of these things come in your light bill. And I get little newsletters from the town that we always read. And so I have not made ours electronic because I appreciate the other information.
Go ahead, Marie.
Just two things. I think actually two ideas. One that I discussed with Maria is that I heard Jen say that the website is static. You guys put such great stuff on your Facebook feed, and I think it gets buried. And I was thinking of maybe coming up with pages off of your website. And so you could like have an anti-racism page and have a LGBTQ page. And that way, we could link to those pages off the main page, but like, here's all the books that we read during LGBT. So I don't have to like go through your feed to then find them.
Yeah.
And I think like, because you can link to the page and people will click on a link. They're not going to search the website to find stuff. So I would, and I don't know how to do websites, but I think that's one thing to consider. And then the other thing that Sherry just said is that Town Hall is doing like quarterly real newsletters now. I really pushed for that because the town has dealing with all the same issues that you guys are dealing about. How do you get your message out? And we are trying all these avenues, so social media and website and the light bill. And so we have a newsletter, and it might be an interesting place to kind of do a promotion about what HRC is doing. If you can plan that out of like, this is what we're doing. And Steve and Sherry and Jen McDonald are the people to talk about that. It might be an interesting thing of even a highlight of this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Do we have an annual calendar, kind of what we do?
As the HRC?
Because if you have a plan, that often very much helps. If different months you concentrate on different things. I know like International Month of the Woman, and I know Pride Month, but we should have some sort of calendar. So there are months when there isn't a major event, but it's a good month for special messaging and reminders to people.
Yeah, I think we had one, Maria, like I remember Pina used to send it out. It was just like a running list sort of, and it always started randomly like in the summer. It was like a reverse calendar, like a school year calendar versus like a January through December thing. But it just talked about our events like farmers market in the summer and like library discussion in September and whatever events we were going to be at, like the Anti-Defamation League thing. So it wasn't like a running, to your point, Sherry, every November we do XYZ and everything, but it was sort of like something we kept updated at every meeting to kind of say, here's our upcoming things that we have planned. Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea of putting together something like that.
Maybe not call it a calendar, but like an annual program of works.
Right.
Yeah, and we have
programming
on that in the past, and it was, I think, in kind of putting together the documents for the start of this year, once I became the chair, it was kind of like with the pandemic, there wasn't a whole lot we could list. So that's why I held off on doing something like that. But depending on how things go with this, I think that's a great idea to revive that.
Yeah, I think even to help us with like what kinds of things do we post on our Facebook page to keep it current, right? Like sometimes they're like, what do we have something to post about? And I know Rich gave me like some sites that he uses to like proactively look at, some of the stuff that we might not, that aren't like major holidays in our minds, but like International Day of Remembrance or different things like that we could post about to kind of keep things elevated. So I think even maybe two separate projects of like, one, our programmatic calendar, but then two is like something to keep in mind each month, and whether it's two to three things a month that we post about or like that we plan for, so we don't get lost. I'm thinking
October, how are we going to rename Columbus Day so it's more inclusive? But we could have something that's part of our program that month, that our messaging, the things that we do would revolve around that. November is Thanksgiving. We have a great deal to be thankful for. And maybe because people are starting to be aware that Thanksgiving wasn't such a nice event after all for the Native Americans of this country. There's different things going on that fit in perfectly for different months of the year. And if we can come up, it would be it's the easiest way for us to come up with a program of works, is look at the holidays, look at the commemorations in the different months, and piggyback on that, and maybe get into some of the subtleties, the things that are not the big public celebrations for those particular months. But that would help us with messaging and talking to more people if we were more consistent.
Mm-hmm. I had a question going back to your original thing, Maria, about our presence on social media, or actually it has to do with what you had mentioned, Jen, where so for us to post things or to either respond or post proactively in other spaces, like not on our Facebook page, but in like whatever, the Wakefield community page or whatever, do we need to consult one another as a commission before making these public posts, or is it something that we can do, like Jen, you make posts to our Facebook page without, we don't like wordsmith the posts to the Facebook page. Is it a thing that we're able to do more nimbly? Like, are we allowed to do that?
I think in terms of engaging in a debate or responding to something on a Facebook page, I would want to double check with Tom Mullen about this, but I feel like if it's a back and forth debate, then it can quickly spiral out of control, where the person who's responding on behalf of the HRC runs the risk of making kind of policy statements that we haven't necessarily agreed on. Does that make sense? Whereas if we're saying, you know, if there was a post and we did like a one-off response where, I'm trying to think of an example where we said, if it was, for example, an anti-Semitic, something that was anti-Semitic or around anti-Semitism, and we said, here's some resources that we linked to, like the US Holocaust Museum, something like that, where it's not, where we're not getting into the substance of the debate, but we're just saying, here's another perspective, and sending people there. That I would be more comfortable with. But again, that's something that I'm happy to ask Tom Mullen about and get his thoughts on that in terms of staying on the right side of the open meeting law.
Yeah, and in terms of, I think for some reason our page is a member, and I don't know how that works. Our page is a member of one of the groups, but not enough, like I don't know if other groups' pages aren't allowed to be members. So like I could, as myself, comment, but I wouldn't want to be speaking on behalf of the HRC versus in other places the actual HRC profile could post something, but I think there's only one group that we actually have that ability to, and I don't know why that setting is different there. So in general, historically, we have not posted on behalf of the HRC or like as the HRC profile in any groups. We have sometimes made a post, like when we've made a post about like, we have open positions or something, like as the HRC page, we've posted in that group, hey, we have open positions, come, here's the link to apply, or come check out our International Women's Day event. So very just like promotional type of things, but we don't tend, and then maybe responding with logistics information, but not in terms of like a dialogue like that. Does that help? I don't know if that helps, Benny.
Does that make sense, Benny?
I mean, kind of. None of it really makes sense to me. I think the open meeting stuff, when it comes to social media, is like, it's a law that doesn't seem to, it's a law that predates social media, and it's all very like square peg in a round hole, trying to make it make sense in my brain anyway. So who knows? Right. Also, I'm like a social media hermit and literally don't know how it works. So there's that problem also.
Yeah, well, I lump myself in with that category too. There's some things I have a grasp of. Instagram is like a totally unfamiliar beast to me. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to get on it. So yeah, you're not alone is what I'm trying to say. And actually, if it makes sense, unless people have more to say about this, which I'm happy to let anyone speak. But I was going to say it might make sense at this point to jump to number 7 in terms of the social media presence and roles, because, and actually, before I start talking, does anyone want to say anything else regarding the 5th agenda item in terms of the anti-racism action updates or anything related to that? Okay, all right. So we will keep having this conversation and keep moving forward. And once we have more members, then we'll be able to, we'll have more capacity to do stuff. But in terms of the social media presence, so right now we have an email account where Amy Rando is forwarding the emails to me. We have a Facebook page and presence where people can send individual messages, or they can comment on our posts. Beyond that, so I guess my first question is, do we want more of a social media presence? Meaning, do we want to have an Instagram? Do we want Twitter? And second, if we do, and this is also, again, when we have more members and more capacity, we don't need to conclude all of these questions today. Do we want to have more accounts? And then once we do we want to assign people on those particular platforms that we're using, so that when we see someone's posted to Facebook that we need to check in to say, did you see this? Do you want to reply to it? Do you want me to reply to it? So I just wanted to get people's thoughts on that.
Hi. As you know, I run associations and organizations, and unless those groups have specific people delegated for the different social media venues, it doesn't work. You have to have someone responsible doing some monitoring and some facilitation, because otherwise it just is dead in the water. You have to have people that feed it so that discussions will even begin, and that people who are responsive if something needs a response, or at least passes on that question or that concern to another person. So you have to have champions for each different kind of social media, otherwise it doesn't work very well.
You know, one thing I was thinking, you know, originally when you said like, should we have other ones and how do we assign roles, was like, okay, if somebody does Facebook, somebody else does Twitter, but then I feel like most of the time you're posting the same thing to just two or three different channels. So then wouldn't it make sense for the same person to potentially post, you know, one thing here and there and there?
There's
again,
software that will do it for you.
Okay.
And I can't remember the name of it now,
Yeah,
but the
I think
actual software that if you post it in one place, it will go everywhere. So you don't have to.
But then we still have to have somebody monitoring, right? Like, so even if we use that software and say, okay, this went out into 3 places, if nobody's looking at our Twitter account and moderating it, right?
You still need someone to regularly monitor. But in terms of messaging, you can, and I will find out the name again for you.
Yeah,
there's software you can use, and it sends it everywhere. You don't have to keep on posting to every different place.
Yeah, and we don't need to have additional platforms. That was, you know, if everyone, I'm not even sure that I want to.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see, again, going back to wanting more people to see more positive things instead of like the toxic discussions that are happening on Facebook.
I have a question, maybe Maureen can answer this one. Are there other public-facing town organizations like the HRC that utilize a whole variety of different social media?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I can't think, even the town doesn't do Instagram or Twitter, and I'm trying to think of other examples. I mean, I think I'm trying to think about it as the framing of what Maria kind of posed, is how do we have more of a positive Wakefield presence on social media? And I don't necessarily know if we need to go out to Twitter and Instagram, because right now the conversation's on Facebook, right? And so no, there aren't other, to answer your question, Sherry. I don't, there's not, and most of them aren't on Facebook either, but most of them don't do programming like you guys do, right?
So it's no one we can ask just about their experiences. That's what I was just wondering, so we didn't have to figure it out for ourselves.
No, the library might have an Insta, but they're their own.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it would be curious to check out some of the other HRCs in Massachusetts to see if like what they're doing, right? Like, I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. Like, so, you know, and some of them are, you know, like the Arlington one's really active, and we, you know, Melrose has been around for longer than we have. So maybe see what they do, and maybe kind of like, until we get more members, then report back. I just want to be careful of overextension as I look and see that 7 of us and 2 brand new members. So
yeah, I could raise my hand to do like a reach out to some other HRCs, or I don't know, is the Mass HRC like the bigger thing still happening, Maria? I haven't.
It is. They still meet
okay.
once a month. Yep. This is a coalition, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, a coalition of area or Massachusetts-wide human rights commissions, and they meet once a month to talk about just kind of statewide pressing issues.
That's where we can get a lot of answers, or at least suggestions for answers. I'd love to go to their meetings and hear what other people are saying in other places, just be a fly on the wall even.
Yeah, and I still, I'm happy to forward, I think last month I forgot to forward the email, but I'm happy to forward the emails when when the meetings are happening, because right now they're virtual. So they're usually on, I forget.
They used to be Friday mornings.
Yeah, it's Friday mornings.
Oh,
I forget if it's the first or second Friday of the month. I know, and that's what has prevented us in the past from really being able to, and I think a lot of HRCs in the area, it's prevented a lot of them from being able to take an active role in participating. So yeah, that's the one drawback.
yeah, because people work.
Yeah. I mean, that's what was nice about when we had some members who were retired. It was they could go, and I think yeah, but it is, I've never been able to go to one because I'm always working.
Yeah,
I might be able to because I'm self-employed, so
Yeah.
I can try to carve out some time if I don't have a client event or meeting.
Yeah,
which are all virtual.
right.
I think that while a lot of the like toxic stuff is going on in Facebook, and we're talking about whether we want to be a presence to shift that conversation, in terms of getting people to our events, which was a big thing that we talked about last time, either getting people to our events or just like allowing people to be aware that we exist if they want to get involved and things like that. I think there probably would be a significant advantage to being present on Instagram or Twitter, because like that's how you're going to reach people. I think we already are doing the things that are necessary to reach the sort of like, I'm going to say this without the intention of offending anyone, but like sort of old timey, like Wakefield folks who read the paper and, things like that. We're reaching those people already. And if we want to reach anyone other than the same people for every event, I think getting on some of those other media platforms would be valuable. So maybe not for the purpose of shifting the dialogue. I don't know what's going on the Wakefield community in those spaces, but certainly in terms of pushing our events.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think we have the potential to reach some of the younger generation in Wakefield who, yeah, probably doesn't subscribe to the paper and may not be on Facebook. So, Yana, I didn't know if you wanted to say something or if that was.
Yeah, I actually did want to comment on this because I actually think that getting an Instagram would be a great idea if you can find someone to moderate. Like because I was like myself, I was searching to see if you guys had one, and like I can safely say that you guys would probably gain hundreds of followers, like, and reach out to so many more, especially students, because right now Instagram is great at spreading the like important messages. And after posting, a lot of times people share it to their stories. So then even those followers see that like message, and then they see the account, and then you'll get even more followers. So I think it's a great idea to get an Instagram and reach out to the students, like younger people, like you said.
Yeah, so this is my not understanding, but I mean, I know I'm on Insta myself, but I don't use it very well. But everything is a picture, right? So I mean, a lot of times we post things like I think Maria, you posted about John Lewis as a, something where we're mourning, but like I suppose we could have just found a stock picture of John Lewis to post with that, right? But I think most things are photo based. So just thinking about some of our other posts in the past, right? A lot of times we're posting links or information, and I think from Instagram it's really hard to post links, right? I mean, this is I don't know, but I've tried to post links before and people are like, I can't click on the link, can you put it in your bio or something? So I guess I just wouldn't, I'd want to make sure that if we're posting things that we're posting it the right way there, I guess. But that can be figured out once we decide if we're even having one. So yeah.
I got the impression that Instagram really depends on visuals as well, not so much words. And so things like the pride flag that Sue said she didn't see. I mean, if we had posted that on Instagram, more people would know that Wakefield stands behind diversity of people. and supports them.
So maybe that question of like, would the one post go to like all three places or both places? Maybe that's different. Maybe we would have like a different curation of content and posts for each different medium. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, because some lend more to, well, even posting questions that are thought-provoking for people. You know, like we have a question right now. It's like, should the Human Rights Commission have, post on Instagram and see what people say? Or how can the Human Rights Commission convey their messages more effectively through the community and just get answers?
Yeah.
And if those are just, if we can do innocuous enough posts that don't bring out people who are going to be vicious, obnoxious, and say dubious things, but questions, thoughtful questions. How can Wakefield be a more welcoming town?
Yeah.
Yeah, just questions like that.
I would also, I'll put in a quick plug for making posts that are not totally innocuous. I think that if we want to shift the dialogue, questions can be a powerful tool, I think, if used in a powerful way. But I also think that to shift the dialogue, to shift the culture, to not in a damaging way, like not in a shaming way or things like that, but to post things that are potentially controversial, I think is important. Because if you only post things that everyone will agree with, I think that that supports the status quo, which in our world is a racist thing to do. Basically, if you're supporting the status quo, you're supporting a racist system. So I think pushing against the status quo is the thing that is controversial, but I think it's our responsibility to do that. So just want to plug into that.
How prepared are we to handle a firestorm? So we still have to be very cautious.
Yeah, I think we would have to definitely be able to up our game in terms of responsiveness, our messaging being sort of like having a clarity of analysis and messaging to be able to respond in ways that are kind of on I don't know how to say it, on mission, except it's, yeah, on mission, I guess. Yeah, I think that we would have to have some sort of like way as a group to get on the same page in terms of like, what is our stance on these things? How do we as an organization, like what is our discourse on these different topics or whatever, I think it would require some work on our end to be responsible about it, for sure.
So is it worth pausing this conversation for now until we have more members? We can gain some familiarity, not necessarily starting our own Instagram accounts to figuring it out, but just having more of an understanding as to how those different social media platforms work, and then also talking with whoever our new members end up being in terms of kind of the points that you've all raised about how do we respond and how do we handle, who's going to handle each one and different details like that. Does that make sense to?
I think this has to be tabled until we have the personnel to really deal with it. But I think that having the conversations beginning now is a good idea. And I think it's important for us to have a more robust presence in different ways, because different populations, we already know, respond to different things. Like I said, I get my mail. I mean, I look forward to that bill that has not the bill, but the information that's included with it.
Did we still want to, in the meantime, reach out to other HRCs or just try to gather that information through the conglomerate?
I think that would be really helpful.
Yes.
For the conversation. And if you want me to reach out to the statewide one, I'm happy
I
to
can't
do
remember
that.
what it's called.
Yeah, it's just MAHRC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it worth reaching out to them and then that disseminates through all of them, or should we reach out individually? Because I think I only know, I can reach out to the 2 or 3 that I know about, but if there's others across the state, then I don't want to miss out.
Do they have a listserv? Because if they had a listserv, you can post a question.
I don't know that they do. I can, let me look into that because
they have a website, because I had someone reach out to me from Westford, and she asked how we created the HRC and was like looking for a step-by-step. And I pointed her to the website, and I was like, you should ask the statewide network. So.
But yeah, and I know that they do email when there's a monthly agenda. They have an email list. So I don't know if that's going to just the active, the HRCs that attended the previous month's meeting, or if that's to the entire group. So I can check on that and I can let you know.
Because like I said, I would try to attend and see if there was any possibility to ask a question on our behalf.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then in the meantime, so I am happy to respond to any emails that come into our email account. And Jen, I think you and I have been responding, kind of sharing the responsibility of responding to messages on Facebook. Are you okay continuing with that? Would you rather would you rather not do that? Would you rather take it on entirely? I'm totally.
I feel like it's a lot to do for one person.
Yeah.
So, but then I feel like, there's all this time like, oh, should I respond to that? Or is Marie going to respond to that? Or I don't know how we would respond to that. And I don't want to speak on behalf of, all of us without consulting. So, certainly I'm happy to continue to have access to post things like events and sharing things from other HRCs or other groups, on different holidays or minor holidays or those things that happen. So yeah, I think you and I probably just need to coordinate, figure out how. I actually think that there is an assign feature now in like when we receive messages, that if I read a message from somebody that comes in and I'm like, I don't know the answer to this, I can assign it to Maria to respond. So maybe we can try to using that feature so that we're not stepping over each other.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't we, I can take a look at that offline and we can figure that process out.
Okay.
That works. All right. Okay. And now in terms of the vacant positions and the new member orientation, the posting for the vacant positions just went out earlier this afternoon for the 1 vacancy from town council and the 3 from the school committee. So the August 13th is the deadline for people to apply, and regardless if they're applying for school committee or town council positions, all of the applications are going to be sent to Sherry Dalton. And then Ann Santos, Amy Purcell, and I are still figuring out the process after that. There was a request to do a little tweaking to the interview and the reviewing of applications. So that's still a little bit up in the air. But I will let you know, I mean, particularly you, Jen, and Amy Rando, who were the 2 that generally handled the application process. So there may be changes in that. We're still waiting to kind of resolve those details.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw the email come through and it was like, it requires a telephone interview with the chairs of the school committee, the select board, and the HRC. And I was like, wait, that's different than our normal process. So yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I'll fill you and Amy in about that process. And we'd like, just to give everyone a sense of the timeline, because of when the meetings fall, we wanted to give people enough time to find out about this and submit their applications. So, and town council has fewer meetings over the summer than they do during kind of the school year months. And so this, at least the town council position, will not be voted on until a meeting in September. I need to double check the date. And then for school committee, I would think it would be around the same time. I've asked if we could try the best that we can to coordinate both the positions on both sides, just so new people are all starting at the same time. And I will, once we have a date, an exact date for both of those, I can let people know. And then Sherry, do you want to talk a little bit about the new member orientation?
Right, or onboarding. As the very newest member of the HRC, I was confused because I never received, I got one document from Maria, but I never received any kind of onboarding or orientation, even briefly, on policies and procedures. And after this meeting, I can see there are some policies and procedures that we don't even have that need to be clarified. And I would have found it very helpful, and I'm a self-starter, but I would have found it very, very helpful if after being sworn in, I would have been invited to, could have been a Zoom meeting, obviously, at this time, but invited to a meeting and given an orientation on that document that Maria gave me, talking about different fine points and the different policies and procedures on how the HRC operates. And because I have no idea, I didn't know what was expected to me. All I knew was I really believe in the mission of the HRC and I wanted to be a member, so I applied and I got accepted. But I didn't even know that I could have been accepted by the school committee rather than the town council. I didn't even know that process. So I think it's very important, especially considering that we are down so many members and some of the problems that arose because of some meeting behaviors and recordings. I think it's really important that before we start, we have that conversation about how things are done and should be done. And we could head off some difficulty and also help people hit the ground running as soon as they get on the commission. And like I said, I'm used to this kind of thing because I work with organizations all the time, but we're going, we'll possibly get some people who are not as accustomed to this kind of thing. And even if you are, I would have appreciated the advice and the help. So I suggested to Maria that I would like to work with whoever wants to start putting together a brief orientation program. It could be a half hour that we can present to our new people, because we're going to get a lot of them, and have it ready for when they come on board.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I will say I would have liked that too.
Yeah.
I will say, I think it's a great idea. And just for everyone to know, welcome to local government. There is no handbook. And so all of us all across get sworn in, and then we get into a meeting. And so I love that idea, but know that like it is a radical idea, as Benny talks about, fighting the system, that there's no handbook. So just putting that out.
I have to tell you, with every group that I've worked with, and I've worked with dozens of different associations over the years, for most of them, it was an uphill battle for me to convince them that they needed to do onboarding. So people understood the philosophy of the group they were working with beyond what was written down on a piece of paper, and understood really what was expected of them in terms of behaviors and what was allowable and not. Like this whole recording thing, I was really taken aback by this, because it's a public meeting, anyone can listen in. And I'd like to know the rationale and the background for insisting that these meetings are recorded when our live meetings are not. People are invited the same in each case. But there's a lot of questions I have and wonder about, but believe me, I had to work really hard to get my groups to buy into this. And everyone who comes on any of the boards that I'm in charge of, that I'm the executive director, they also get a leadership manual. They can get a virtual copy. I always give them a physical copy too, just so they see there's something real there because if I send them a virtual one, it's just another document. So I give them a loose leaf, a big binder, and then I also send them virtual. But we have orientations, and some of them are luncheons, and some of them are evening programs off-site, but it's always dedicated time. And I talk to them about, you know, in this case, it's not appropriate, but I talk to them about what it means to be a nonprofit and the different kinds of governance and laws that govern their status so they don't lose it. And,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there are things that would jeopardize our existence that we should talk about.
Right.
You know,
Open
and that
meeting
should come in
law
that should come in an orientation. So
I agree, and I would be willing to help with this. And I think there's still some questions that I would have. You know, I don't know that it would be a complete document to start or a complete, you know, slide deck or whatever we put together for it or packet. But, you know, I know we've talked a lot about our where things are stored and how to access them. And so that could be also something that goes in there once we figure that out, right? Is like, here are policies and procedures, and here's where you find them, or here's where you have access to them, or here's where we're going to give you access to get to them. Or if it's just a printout, you know, here's your copy, or we're going to email you. But at least there's something that says, like, these are the things you need to have on day one, you know, and that you should read or look at, or we'll walk through with you at that time. So stuff like how to, you know, our application process, and how do we, you know, open meeting law, which I know sometimes we have Tom Mullen come in like once a year, once every 2 years to like refresh. But even if there's some basic bullet points on like basic things, I don't think I got Tom Mullen's little refresher until I was already a year into my role. So I think those sorts of things would be really helpful to have.
right. But even before, when I was talking about brainstorming with the library informally, and then I didn't even make the connection to the open meeting law. I mean, these are things that need to be discussed with people beforehand, so it's not an issue. And like I said, we don't get into trouble and we don't end up short-handed, you know, and it's, so Jen, we will talk and put together a whole list of the kinds of things that maybe should be covered. And I think having some kind of quickie slide deck is a great idea. PowerPoint always works, and you can use it with Zoom. And that way we have a baseline. And then it gives people also the opportunity to ask questions before they start.
Yeah, and if I could add to the action item for those, for the 2 student members that just joined, what information would you want to have now that you're brand new? What information it would be helpful for you to have about the HRC and how we operate and how we recruit members, or any information you can think of that would be helpful as you're starting out in this group? And for the rest of us, what information would you have liked to have had when you started? Whether it was just getting to know the other members beyond your name and how many years you've been on the HRC. If we could all give that some thought and maybe send it to Sherry and Jen, would that be helpful?
Yeah. Very.
Okay.
And students, would that be helpful to you?
Okay. And at the very least, in the meantime, what I can do is I just wrote a note to myself to send Yana and Faith the policies and procedures and information about the open meeting law. Because that policies and procedures are really kind of the backbone of how we operate and how we're composed. And then the open meeting law is just something that comes up in pretty much every meeting in terms of how fast or how slow we're able to move in any kind of action items. All right, so anything else about that? And I'm quite aware that we've gone over an hour and a half, so
I just wanted to say that although Yana and Faith introduced themselves, none of the rest of us introduced ourselves to them.
Oh.
So maybe we should close with that.
All right, that sounds good. Can we do the matters not anticipated, and then we can all introduce ourselves before we adjourn? Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay. So I just have one thing in terms of the matters not anticipated. We got an unsolicited donation from Greenwood Wine and Spirits for $1,000.
Wow.
Blown away by. And I've sent them a thank you note already. And I emailed Steve Mayo and Ann Santos to just ask, because this is a donation as a town body, we have to ask permission to accept it. So I have emailed them and they're aware of it, and it's going to be on the next, my understanding is that it's on the agenda for the next town council meeting. So I'll go in front of them and let them know and see if we can deposit that. So if anyone happens to be in Greenwood, please feel free to thank them for their generosity. Yeah. So that was exciting to receive.
I don't shop there, but I'll make a point of going there.
That's great.
Does anyone have any other matters?
I just have one sort of follow up from my last action item, which was to email or reach out to Steve and Sherry about our International Women's Day action item poster, the like all the circles that everyone filled out. I never got a response. I followed up twice. Still didn't get a response. So I don't know if we should drop it. Should I recycle it? What do we want to do with that poster? Because it's still sitting in my garage.
Oh, you mean you're talking about all the comments that people posted? Yeah. We should have that on our website.
I mean, I took a picture of it. It's hard to see all the writings. I took a bunch. I mean, when I first was on the wall at the event, I took a bunch of pictures like all throughout it. I mean, maybe it's worth it to go through and just transcribe them all into like a list or something that we could post. Like, here are all the things people said, because it's really hard to read some of the handwriting, and most of my pictures overlap. So I'm like, well, I read that one already, or is that a duplicate? So, but like the wide shot that I took of it, you can't see any of them because it's so far away, and the pen was like those little purple pens that we gave out. So, but yeah, the intent was always supposed to be to hang it in town hall after the thing, and then obviously COVID happened, and then town hall shut down, and we never did it, and I just never got a response.
Well, it should be laminated so it doesn't fall apart.
I mean, most of the little circles are already unstuck in there, but it's all sort of rolled up on a shelf in my garage. But my husband's like, what are we doing with this thing? So it's not urgent for me to necessarily get rid of it. I'm just trying to figure out, is it worth trying to reach out a third time and ask if it should be moved to town hall, or should we just decide what to do with it internally?
I think if we're talking about having more of a presence, particularly on our webpage, maybe the idea of compiling all of the messages, and that's not something that you need to do, but as opposed to, and right now town hall is still open only for appointment. Is that right?
Right.
So not a lot of people are going to see it anyway.
Yeah.
But eventually they will. And like I said, if it's laminated, it becomes portable because it doesn't get destroyed. So we can rotate between AmeriCol and Town Hall and the library.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful.
It's like 4 feet by 3 feet or something, or like 5 feet.
Yeah, it's a very large poster. Yeah. But I mean, it's the kind of thing that I really hate to lose that. I mean, if we can use the money from Greenwood and Spirit, take it to Staples and have it laminated, that would be great, because they can do large documents.
I do think that more people will see it if we post it on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, the poster is nice, but if the purpose is to, like, put those messages out into the world and have people see them, then I think.
Yeah.
I'm thinking both.
Transcribing them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think transcribing them and putting them on the Facebook page could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then we could make a post about it and link back, right, Maureen? If we get it on the website, make a link or make a page like for International Women's Day or women's issues or whatever we want to call that page, then we could have like the picture of the wide shot picture of all the things together, and then a PDF or something that lists all the actions that people had written. And then we could post about it and say, check out this list, and for our last event before we all went virtual, we had this great call to action, checking back in, like, for those who attended, have you taken an action? And for those who couldn't attend, check out this list or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get a response. I don't know if you're going to get a response. I think everything's kind of put on hold. I would take pictures, Jen, like try to get as many good pictures as you can. I actually think as we talk with the library about future projects, like that was actually a really cool thing we did at an event. And so I think it's something we could think about replicating. And so we don't necessarily need to keep the hard copy, because I think it's something like, you know, at another event, like I just think it's a great way to engage people. And the library has such great art projects open once they're open again, that maybe it's a collaboration. We can think about them, of like people visiting the library and they have a section and HRC is asking you, what do you think, you know, who's your favorite woman from history for Women's History Month or whatever, and people write something and stick it up. So I would take some good pictures and let's put it on social media and for our website and for the PowerPoint that you and Sherry are working on. But I don't necessarily know if Town Hall is going to put up like a piece of paper, unfortunately. But I think we can talk about maybe laminating like index cards in the future so that it is more permanent, or framing a part of it or something.
I just wanted to like comment on this part. Something that I've been working on lately is after the protest, like the march in Wakefield, I made a poster. I actually have one just saying "Stronger Together," and a lot of people end up liking it a lot. So, for my aunt who works in Reading, she asked me to make more of it, and so now all the teachers are hanging them up at her school on like the doors. So like that's something that we could like, I don't know, like look into, like how because in Reading they're doing that, just hang up.
You know.
Yeah, and it could fit with, because one of the ideas that we had last month in that meeting.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Yes, about you know, doing more anti-racism actions. One idea was like more visual, like messaging all around town, just like it should be everywhere, and like putting them in businesses and whatever. And if we could get businesses to hang them up, it could be cool.
So Yana, if you have other really positive messages as well, the wording of the, or, I mean, I probably am the only one in this. I pay a lot every month. I have all kinds of graphic software, and I'm not a graphic designer, but I know how to use some of it. And I can make things into a form that, like, I can make things into JPEGs and the like, so that we can use it in different places. Because PDFs aren't always the best, don't always work the best. So if you have other, do you have other posters, or is that the one?
No, I've been making so many. Like I said, I made making them for all the teachers in Reading, since my aunt is like a school nurse there. And so then once she hangs it up on her door, all the teachers been asking for them. And
but they're the same message.
Yeah, the same
okay.
post, same Stronger Together. But I can make so many different types of messages. I was thinking, like, it is a great way to spread such an important message.
We would love your help, because we talked about this last month, about a very low-tech way of at least messaging to people the positive.
Yeah, I would love to help on that.
Great, that would be fantastic.
So is there like a next step around that? Like what should we do?
Well, how are you replicating? How are you duplicating the posters? Are you drawing in new ones all the time?
Yeah, like I said, I love to draw. So I just been making like new ones every time, whenever I have like free time, and it's just like something I love to do. And I like how it spreads such an important message. So I love how that I can use my art in that way.
Yeah,
so,
because I could take a photo of it, and then we could have them.
Yeah, that could work
copied.
too. That would save me some time.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, we could obviously we could post something to our Facebook page, but I think, you know, you were talking about the Chamber of Commerce, and we talked about, like, is there something we could do in local businesses? Maybe we could set, you know, maybe we could get them to agree to put up signs. I don't know. For those, you know, those posters. And I don't know if it would say HRC, or if we just say, you know, a student in one of our schools designed this, and we're trying to just spread positive messages, or how would we?
Or just say citizens of Wakefield.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are, all of us.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. So do we So in terms of next steps, do you, Yana and Sherry, do you want to collaborate in terms of running off more of these pictures, or do we want to reach out to the businesses first to see if people would be willing, so we have a sense of how many we would need, to see if they would be willing to post them in their stores?
Okay, well, first things first, I think I need to take a photograph with a good camera so that, like I said, you don't have to constantly redo the same thing, but you can come up with new ideas, which would be, because people love original artwork, and if it has a positive message, I think people would react very well to it. And right now, Stay Stronger Together happens to be one of those themes that we see everywhere. Kids are chalking it on sidewalks, I mean, and things of that sort. I mean, I have a teddy bear in my window. We have no kids at home. So I would need to, I'll tell you what, you don't have it. I was going to say my Gmail is very easy. It's my name, exactly as you see it spelled, no spaces, @gmail.com.
Okay.
And then we can talk to each other.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Now,
I ask?
how are we going to do it? You want to know if the businesses are going to be willing or not first? Like show it to them and say, would you like one of these? And get, make a limited amount of them. And then if we need more, because I'd be willing to walk around with my mask on, handing them out.
Is that something we would go to the Wakefield Chamber on first?
I could go to him and say, I'll send him a picture. And I said, I have these wonderful small posters. And we were wondering if your members would be, and then we'd know exactly how many, because we can distribute it through him.
Yeah.
Or as I said, we can walk around Wakefield with our mask on.
All right. Does that feel like we have enough?
I'll talk to him again, and Yana and I will coordinate, but I'll talk to him and see if that is a good way to do it. And I will email back to all of you and tell you what his reaction is. Is that allowable? It's not part of the open meeting thing, but is that okay?
No, I think that's okay.
Okay, okay.
Maria, I had a technical or I don't know, and I know we're almost ready to do our introductions and leave, but is just so I understand, is Yana like a voting member or an official member? Or is she just I didn't mean to come out that way. Is she like a liaison type of person, or is it, so she's not a voting member of the HRC?
Right,
Okay.
She's not a voting member. She's a liaison from the Youth Council.
Great. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
So not to exclude you when we do take
No.
things, Yana. Faith will be included in the vote, but because you're a liaison and not a full commission member, we can only have full commissioners vote.
No, I totally understand.
But she'll be on our like email list if we're sending out the agendas and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, in the same.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're part of our leadership, just not a voting leader.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we are approaching the 2-hour mark, and I know everyone is getting exhausted. Do we want to do some for the 4 of us that are still here, the 4 non-student members? Do we want to do some introductions?
Some outros.
Some outro.
Outro, yeah.
Benny, you want to start us off?
Yeah.
Who?
Sure.
What did you say? Me? What?
Go, Benny.
You're up.
Okay. My name is Benny Wheat. I go by she, her, hers. I moved to Wakefield like a little over 2 years ago, and let's see, I'm a social worker. I work with homeless folks in Cambridge and sort of greater Boston area. I am a passionate affordable housing and anti-racism advocate. I do anti-racism organizing, particularly with white folks, and doing sort of consciousness raising and like helping people to begin to examine their whiteness and the role that race plays in our society. What else? Those are some factoids about me. And I've been on the commission for a year little over a year.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I can. I am Jen Betcher, also she, her, hers. I am, I've been in Wakefield for just almost, well, 11 years, I think now. I have 2 kids in the school system. One is going into 3rd grade, one is going into kindergarten. We're in the Woodville district. I work at, my day job is at Liberty Mutual. I'm a senior instructional design specialist, and that basically means I write training programs, but I'm working right now in our diversity and inclusion department. So we're doing trainings, pulling together things on modern bias, internalized bias, how our feelings are messengers for what we're feeling, or for what we think and do. And I'm on, as part of my company, I'm on the employees and of African descent and allies employee resource group as an ally member. So I help do communication. I'm on the leadership team within that group. And then in Wakefield, I attended and then helped facilitate a course on conversations about whiteness. So exploring sort of white privilege and anti-racism.
Thanks, Jen.
And I'm Sherry Oken, and I attended that excellent course, and that's how I met Benny. And I know Jen Besha because we are in the Books by the Lake book group from the library. The library is really central to my life in Wakefield, and one of the reasons we moved here. My husband and I moved here 18 years ago, and we've been remodeling our house ever since then. Jen knows, she's been here. We even had the party that said we're done, and we're not, because he's doing more stuff. It just keeps going on and on and on. When I moved here, I also moved my business to Wakefield, and it's up in Lakeside Office Park. And what I do is I have an association management company. I'm executive director and have staff that provides all kinds of services to run nonprofit membership groups like trade associations. And everybody belongs to something, but not every organization has its own staff and office and machinery. And what they do is they hire a management firm like mine, and we provide all of that for them. And I've been doing that for a very, very long time. And I truly love Wakefield and was very impressed with the HRC and came on board this spring, just a couple of months ago, and was I actually got sworn in the parking lot of the town hall because I couldn't go inside. And I took off my mask, brought my own pen, and got sworn in. So I'm delighted to be involved with this organization. I've always attended the programs, and I've been very impressed with the kinds of things a fledgling group like this, because it's a new group, has been able to do.
Thanks,
I should have said how long I've been on, and I was trying to remember because I started off cycle in like October. So I think it's been not quite 2 years. I think in October it'll be 2 years.
That sounds great. Thanks. So my name is Maria Muti, and I've been on the HRC for 3 years now. I grew up in Wakefield, graduated from Wakefield High School, and then lived in various places, including I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Jordan for 2 years, and then came back to the area and went to law school. So I'm a public interest lawyer. I worked for almost 8 years at an organization that did legal services for victims of rape and sexual violence, and focused, I worked primarily with our immigrant clients there. And then that led me to focus more on immigration law. So I took 5 years off because I had my 3rd and 4th kids who were identical twins. So, so yeah, I have 4 kids who are going into 5th grade, 3rd grade, and 1st grade. And then when I went back to work, I'm working in the field of immigration law for the city of Somerville in their Office of Immigrant Affairs. And so I don't represent immigrants, but I'm an advocate. So, and yeah, my husband and I moved back here 5 years ago. So yeah, I think that's my story in a nutshell.
Should we, I feel like we should let Amy and Marion and everybody else introduce themselves, but should we explain a little bit about who else is on the commission for them?
Sure. Yep. So the commission is made up of, it's a 14-member body. So it's 3 ex officio members, which are the superintendent, chief of police, and superintendent of schools. Then we also have a clergy member, a student member, who is Faith, and we have a representative from the police department, who is Officer Amy Rando, and she's been, as far as I know, she has been the police representative since the start of the HRC 5 years ago. And then we have 4 appointed positions from school committee and 4 appointed positions from town council. Right now, I'm the only school committee appointee, and then our other 3 members are all town council appointees. And then we're working on filling the rest, filling the rest of the positions. So that's just kind of a broad overview of the Human Rights Commission and who we are. So if either one of you have any questions, either now, we're happy to entertain any of those questions, or in the future.
I'm good on questions right now.
You're like, I would like to get out of my car. Okay, so with that, I think, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right. So taking a roll call vote, Faith, do you move to adjourn, or do you vote
here?
Okay. I put you on the spot.
Yes.
Right? Jen?
Yes.
Benny?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Benny will send out the notes and we can take a look at the action list. If we want to go over them now, we can.
Yeah, we usually do that first, don't we?
Do you want me to read them, or do you want me to just send them with the notes? What's?
If you want to read them real quick.
I'm going to do it real quick. Okay, action items. Yeah. I am going to send last month's approved minutes to Sherry Dalton. I am going to invite Senator Jason Lewis to some future meeting so that he can talk to us about the Native American mascot and the state seal and there's 5 pieces of legislation that he's sponsoring about Native American stuff in Massachusetts. I'm going to try to reach out to activists in other towns about how they were able to get rid of their racist mascots or, team names or whatever. Maria is going to go through the names on the Pride events on our Facebook page and draw the raffle for the books. I'm going to reach out to Steve Mayo and Tom Mullen to ask about what the process would be for flying the Pride flag on the flagpole in the Common next year. Everybody send ideas to Sherry about how to collaborate with the library. Sherry is then going to take those ideas and send them along to Catherine at the library and talk more about that. Let's see, Jen will reach out to other HRCs or the Mass HRC Coalition to talk about what they do regarding social media platforms.
Yeah,
Maria?
so am I doing that now, or are we just having Maria do that's where I was confused, because I was asking if I'm still doing that to some individual ones, or if we're just going to go through the.
Why don't I start with the Mass HRC
Okay.
group, and depending on the response that we get from that, it might need to be individual reach outs.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do the individual ones once we start there.
Okay.
So Maria will reach out to the Mass HRC for that. Maria and Jen will work out amongst themselves how to respond to Facebook messages. Jen and Sherry will work on putting together some orientation materials. Everybody send Jen and Sherry thoughts or ideas about what would be or would have been helpful to you when you first started on the HRC. Yana and Sherry will talk about the posters, and then Sherry will contact the Chamber of Commerce about putting those posters up in businesses around town.
Okay. Can you add, Jen will transcribe the Women's Day action things? And then I guess I would work with Jen McDonald to put it on the website, or should I just say, for now, it's just get it transcribed and then we'll decide what to do with it later?
Yeah, for now, get it transcribed, because I want to reach out to her about just in terms of expanding content on our website, and if that's something that she would do, or So yeah, let me have that conversation with her first, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm adding that to your action list then, Maria.
Got it.
And that's it.
Are we meeting next month, or is August the month we take off, or are we not taking
We
off?
said we would revisit it and never did.
If,
I feel like we're adjourned right
At
now.
home, what difference does it make, right?
if everyone's okay with it, I would still like to meet next month, and we can vow to have an hour-long meeting and no more. I feel like there's still a lot going on that I don't want to interrupt our momentum.
Well, and what day is next month's meeting? Because when will we get the applications back? We might need to be talking about that.
Right.
It would be after the applications, because it's the third Tuesday.
Well, the applications would be due on the 19th, and we would be meeting
Oh,
on the
I thought it was the
18th.
13th. I got the wrong date.
I
August 13th was applications due.
Oh, was that?
Yeah,
thought that's what it said in the email.
yeah. I wrote that down.
No, it says applications and resumes will be accepted through August 19th by 4:30 p.m.
Okay. What day of the week is that?
That is a Wednesday.
Okay.
So that'd be
Which
the
means
day
that-
after
yeah.
our meeting.
No, it would be, I think we'd meet the next week, the way the Tuesdays.
No, the
come.
third Tuesday is the 18th because we've got August
Oh.
4th, 11th, and 18th.
Okay. Oh, well.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, we will need to, hopefully, if Amy's on the meeting, and Maria, once you and Amy and Anne talk about the new application process, maybe we'll have something that we need as a to-do for me and Amy Rando.
Okay. All right.
But-
Yeah, that's good. Yana, you have a very cute dog. Okay. Yeah. So if everyone's okay with still meeting next month, I promise I will. We will do our best to keep it to no more than 60 minutes, if we can do it.
I'm gonna call you about that, Maria, because I have this challenge with my boards all the time.
Yeah.
And we hold the meetings down.
Yeah.
So I can give you some suggestions of,
Okay.
I don't know if it worked with this group, but it worked with others.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to meet you guys.
Good night.